More than 600 people have died and more than 1.3 million have been displaced in the worst floods Nigeria has experienced in over a decade, according to the country's Humanitarian Affairs Department. Thousands of homes and large swaths of farmland, roads and other critical infrastructure have been damaged or destroyed. The widespread flooding was prompted by extreme rainfall and the release of water from the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon, which neighbors Nigeria. Nigeria has put forward a national response plan for state and local governments and has provided food and supplies to states. Flooding has impacted 27 of Nigeria's 36 states, officials said, and several more weeks of flooding is anticipated. Matthias Schmale, the United Nations humanitarian coordinator for Nigeria, said that climate change played a role in worsening the flooding. Rising temperatures have prompted more evaporation in the atmosphere, leading to more frequent and intense precipitation events and drought conditions. Climate change is real, as we are yet again discovering in Nigeria, Schmale said during a press briefing last week. Sadiya Umar Farouk, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, said this week that states and local governments failed to take adequate action to prepare for the extreme floods despite the forecasts, and urged local communities to take heed of climate predictions. Farouk also called on officials to prepare for more flooding by evacuating people residing on floodplains to high grounds, as well as providing tents, relief materials and medical supplies to communities. There was enough warning and information about the 2022 flood. But states, local governments and communities appear not to take heed, the minister wrote in a tweet on Monday. Floodwaters have inundated numerous communities along the banks of the Niger and Benue rivers, as well as Lokoja, the capital city of the state of Kogi, according to satellite imagery shared by NASA. More than 200,000 homes have been affected by the severe floods, according to Nigeria's Humanitarian Affairs Ministry. Communities along the River Niger and River Benue have been particularly impacted as water levels rose up to 13 meters. Videos show homes and businesses entirely submerged, as well as people wading through waist-high water or using canoes to travel around. Laifa Obo is a student and entrepreneur from Yenagoa, located in Bayelsa State, in the heart of the Niger Delta region. At least 700,000 people in the state have been displaced. Numerous people have died trying to escape the floods. In the state of Anambra, 76 people died when their boat capsized on October 7th. The disaster has also raised concerns of impending health and humanitarian crises, as communities are dealing with shortages of basic goods and clean water. Corpses, trash and sewage in the water present further health risks to people who have to wade through flooded streets. Flooding isn't a new challenge in Nigeria, it's one of the country's most prevalent natural disasters. During the rainy seasons, from March to July and mid-August to mid-October in the south, and July to October in the north, major rivers often burst their banks, dams burst too. This causes flooding in numerous Nigerian states, among them Delta, Kogi, Anambra, Bayelsa, Adamawa, and Niger. Various experts have written for The Conversation Africa on Nigeria's flooding challenge and steps needed to alleviate their worst effects. Environment researcher Adako Jane Akendu explains that, unlike some natural disasters, floods due to rainfall can be controlled with proper planning and infrastructure. She reveals that the main drivers of Nigeria's include poor, or non-existent, drainage systems, poor waste management, unregulated urban expansion, and the lax implementation of laws. Floods can be particularly devastating in Nigeria's cities, causing the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people. In a study of Lagos and Port Harcourt, disaster risk reduction and resilience specialist Olasunkanmi Habib Okunola found that a variety of factors make cities vulnerable. These include institutional failures, inadequate infrastructure, and a lack of disaster education. Okunola outlines what cities must do to better cope with the risk of floods. Key to this is the need for government, non-governmental agencies, community-based organizations, and residents to join forces and prepare for floods, reducing their impact. Flooding may seem to be an inevitable reality for Nigeria. But, argues water management expert Nelson Odum, risks can be minimized in a variety of ways. The most significant of these is coordinated spatial planning. This involves bringing urban planners and environmental practitioners together to organize the distribution of people and activities in a space. He outlines the steps Nigeria needs to take to deal with flooding. These include installing gauging stations, developing suitable models for hydrological predictions, and collecting data that will enable accurate flood forecasting. In the past week, the rampant flood situation across the country has ravaged many communities, washed away farms, and destroyed people's properties. Sadly, motorists passing through communities have had to make a detour, passing through longer routes to get to their destinations. Many roads have been washed away, many farmlands, houses, vehicles, and other properties have succumbed to the overpowering effect of flooding. Findings show the country is facing its worst flooding in a decade, with the national emergency authorities describing the situation as beyond control. While the devastating flood situation has become a recurring decimal, different narratives have been put forward as the cause. Records indicate that Cameroon and Nigeria were supposed to build 2 dams at inception, such that the Nigerian dam, known as Dasin Hausa Dam, which was to be in Adamawa State, would contain water released from the Lagdo Dam at any point in time. The Dasin Hausa Dam was supposed to be 2.5 the size of the Lagdo Dam, meant to supply electricity to the northern part of Cameroon and also aid irrigation. But sadly, the absence of dams to control the excesses from Cameroon's dam have continued to cause serious consequences on frontline states and communities along the courses of rivers Niger and Benue. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadiya Farouk, said Nigeria will initiate a bilateral discussion with authorities in Cameroon next month, November 2022, on the periodic opening of the Lagdo Dam. Meanwhile, various spirited efforts are being made and put in place to provide succor to the victims of this devastating floods.